All right. Well, next in our research was an evaluation of ongoing solar programs in the city and how they would impact the program. The CCA target for photovoltaics in the city is a minimum of 31 megawatts in city. The city currently has SFPUC is currently allocating $2 million to $5 million a year for 10 years. For city rebates to PG&E customers. There is a $3,000 to $10,000 rebate cap, which limits the size of photovoltaic arrays. You have, at the state level, rebates are falling each year, and it's getting down to the point, to the lowest threshold point now. And so local programs are a significant way to fill the gap. SFPUC is planning 62 megawatts by 2013. And the PPA program that PUC has started depends on the rebates to pencil out. We are recommending that the existing solar programs be integrated into the CCA program. It's not particularly challenging because it's a rebate structure. The rebate structure could simply include CCA customers. And a similar kind of arrangement could be had with the PPAs. We had some discussion with Barbara Hale at the PUC about the idea of selling SFPUC solar to CCA customers, and she had no objections in principle and seemed to be interested in that prospect. I want to invite Robert up again to talk about some of the details.
Okay. Yeah, certainly upfront cost is the biggest issue for solar energy, and one of the main goals of the city's program is to make solar accessible to San Franciscans. In order to do that, we are proposing from our study of best practices that the city at least examine some of the tools that would be available under a CCA that might make solar even more accessible than just a rebate that might pay for 10-15% of the solar system. One of those that was discussed was community-owned solar, where there are shares that people can buy that allows renters, people who move from place to place, don't have the same roof over their head. That could even be homeowners that move from place to place. Makes it much more practical for them to own solar. The issue of scaling up solar is very significant. If you build a 1 kilowatt system, which would reflect perhaps what an average San Francisco would want on their roof, because they don't consume a lot of electricity, your costs go up significantly. And it turns out that if you could share a neighborhood solar program that would go on somebody's roof, scale up even to say 4 or 5 kilowatts, 6 kilowatts, not a huge solar project, that you could actually save more money on the solar project than you would have given in city rebate money. So scaling up can actually be an effective way of saving a lot of money and giving a huge boost in the cost, helping bring down the costs. So another way that CCA can participate would be in bulk purchases of solar equipment and negotiating with a supplier so that you have a supplier for a large number of systems. That brings down marketing and transaction costs. So arranging deals through the CCA could potentially be, and using community solar projects could actually be far more effective than just the rebate structure, and could augment it and bring down solar to a very low cost actually for customers, make it very affordable. So that was one of the things we looked at.
Mr. Freehling, just to sort of recap, one of the major findings, we did a best practices survey around the country of creative approaches to solar, and came across something actually we'd done several years ago for SMUD, recommending a project in which residents or businesses would be allowed to purchase shares in large photovoltaic arrays. It has been developed in Ellensburg, Washington. It's a very successful program there. SMUD has finished a 1 megawatt system and is starting a second system. Very high subscription rates. The beauty of it, if you look at Berkeley, the solar tax assessment district in Berkeley, where they're offering to finance home solar based on a voluntary assessment on your property tax, it has an appeal to it because it's of its simplicity. But the problem is that it limits the program to homeowners who happen to have south-facing rooftops. So it's selecting the 1 in 100 consumers sort of from the get-go, and then depending on those people to subscribe in order to make a successful program. This sort of flexible approach to selling shares in which the individual ratepayer benefits on their electric bill from their ownership of shares in a photovoltaic array and can sell their shares if they move, enables everyone to participate, renters as well as owners, and has an obvious kind of justice dimension for the overall benefits of the CCA program that otherwise would not be offered. So I think it's a significant finding that the city can offer ownership to even those who don't own homes or own homes with north or east facing rooftops. Next subject is urban wind. There are currently just 4 microturbines in San Francisco. There are very significant height restrictions on wind turbines in the city. And so our research got very focused on those restrictions and on processes that would be required in order to augment an effective urban wind program in the city. Benefits of wind: if you have an adequately windy site and you can get the turbine high enough, wind power is very price competitive power. And effectively, there is a sort of glass ceiling that has prevented wind power from developing in the United States for the last 20 years. It has been surmounted largely in Europe. Certainly some neighborhoods in San Francisco would object to having windmills. I would expect that that will certainly be an issue, and changing the permitting environment for windmills in this city will be controversial. That being said, urban wind is such a low-hanging fruit. The economics are so much better than most competing local power technologies that to neglect it and let the current permitting environment rest would mean the loss of a significant resource to the city. We've got, within the implementation plan, 72 megawatts of renewable distributed generation apart from solar to develop in the city, and wind power is certainly one of the lowest hanging fruits in terms of being price competitive today. And so we've recommended, just as far as a little more on the technical issues here, you need significant height to get economic wind power in the city. The winds on the ground are just inadequate, generally speaking. If you look at the wind maps, there are some spots that are good, like out here in front of the AAA building. It's a wind tunnel. So there are wind tunnels which could be developed that would generate very economical power, and you could do it at scale probably with a special permit process. But across the city, there's an argument here for removing height restrictions or changing height restrictions in industrial and commercial areas, potentially as an overlay. So we proposed a rezoning ordinance be developed to create overlay districts for windy commercial industrial areas in which the current height restriction on wind turbines could be significantly increased. When I say significantly, the current Bernal Heights exemption for height restrictions, I think, is a couple of feet. Is that right? Very modest change in the height restriction, and we're talking 10 feet. It's a 10-foot exemption. We're talking about much more significant, 100 feet. If you can get this is not perhaps another bold proposal here, but again, if we want to capture wind in the city, we need some pretty good-sized windmills. And yes, there would have to be a strict vetting process and a public process, but still, in terms of the available renewable resources, wind is very important. And so even if it comes down to single large turbines in a few spots, it's something that should be considered. And we need to establish a process for that consideration. So we're recommending that course of action. We're also recommending a general streamlining of permitting for urban wind within the city, much in the same manner that solar has been streamlined.